really what I just wanted to do is to set the scene a little bit around why we're here. And one of the things that we wanted to do when we started talking about holding this event was try and kind of put some structure on what is a very dynamically changing payments market. And really this is just to kind of give you an indication of where it started and where we are now. But really our focus is all up here around this digital cash and what is happening in respect of digital cash and how the market and money movement and payments business is changing so rapidly. And try and create some kind of sense of clarity for the retail market, because we're very aware that many of you are making capital decisions and investment decisions in technology and hardware that tries to anticipate what you're going to need to be doing in the next 5, 10 years. And to do that, you really need to have an understanding about what the payments industry is going to do, what the card schemes are going to ask us to do in respect of handling their traffic, and what the consumer is going to demand as well, because increasingly what we're seeing is that the consumer is driving the change. More so than in the past, I think now we are seeing consumers being selective around where they engage and how they engage. And so I think we're going to see some really interesting things from our presenters today in terms of that mindset. And it's around trying to create a little bit of clarity around that, because there's so much going on and there's so much that you have to try and anticipate as to how it's going to impact on the way we engage. So a little bit around some of the initiatives that are happening. A lot of the technology, a lot of the innovation is around trying to find ancillary bits and pieces that tack onto what has been a traditional payments method. Things like loyalty, things like couponing, things like coupon redemption at the point of sale. These are things that are happening and we're hearing more and more lately. And it's around how do we try and anticipate how that's going to work? If we're going to make technology decisions, how do we make sure that we buy into something that's got a future and that isn't going to be wiped out within a very short period of time by the next greatest piece of innovation? And so what we're seeing here is more and more of the payments business is focusing around the mobile payment space. And that innovation, that great piece of innovation, which is the mobile phone. Many of us walking around with very sophisticated pieces of technology in our pockets, and consumers really relating to that type of technology that they have in their pocket, wanting to use it, wanting to buy the next app, wanting to download the next bit of functionality onto their phone. And we see this as being very important in terms of anticipating how consumers will want to spend and how they'll want to shop. And really what we're seeing now is a convergence between the technology that was e-commerce and the technology that was physical presence. And this mobile commerce space is bringing those two together. It's that linking of the physical world and the e-com world, and how that's going to work in a retail space is of interest to us all. So we can see that things like contactless technology, you'll see up there in the top in the fish stall in Mallorca, that contactless symbol. That's a symbol that in retail space in Ireland is starting to become more prevalent. There's starting to be more awareness of what contactless technology is all about, but we're still a long way from frequent use and universal acceptance of that. But that technology is going to pave the way and open the door for mobile. And we see that as being a kind of a breakthrough bit of technology, and I think we're going to see massive growth in that this year. We're starting to see it in our numbers, certainly. And I think that is what's going to enable people then ultimately to use NFC capability on their phones. And why do we think that? Because we've seen that happen in other markets, and you'll see good examples of that in Sydney and particularly in Asia. The Japanese, through Docomo, have been using mobile payments for many years now, and it's absolutely going to happen here. We're seeing more and more of it happening in the States. I was told yesterday that I think we're at 30-odd% of some aspects of e-commerce is being done off a mobile device in the States, and that's expected to grow rapidly. So absolutely it's going to happen here. And so where do we see, in terms of the 3 different areas, there's an interesting graph here around where people think that's going to happen. So I thought the most interesting aspect of that was people who think that mobile payments are mainstream today, and quite a lot of them in Europe. 6% I thought was a high number for people who think mobile payments are mainstream today. I don't think they're mainstream yet. I think they're close, but they're not mainstream yet. And I think what we're seeing is here, if you take anything from those graphs, it's an indication that it is definitely happening, and it's happening within the 3 to 4 year period. That's when consumers, retailers, technology developers, web developers, till systems will probably be frequently and normally accepting mobile payments. So there are opportunities and there are boundaries, and this is something that Philip is going to talk to us a little bit about. You know, what are the barriers? What are the types of considerations that we need to think about from a consumer's perspective that is going to encourage them or make them maybe resist using that technology? And so we should see some interesting insights in that space later on this morning. And then just to wrap up, just a couple of cartoons, which basically I think they reinforce the point that we are more and more frequently going to see people making instant decisions when they're out and about. This historic approach, which was, and maybe it's not historic for me, maybe I still do this, where I would research online and then go and make a purchase. But now frequently we're seeing people research using their mobile and make a purchase using their mobile. And these decisions happening dynamically as the consumer works off their mobile device. So you have somebody in a restaurant there tweeting for coupons while they're having the meal. And this is the kind of stuff that we're going to see more and more frequently now. And then, of course, the other cartoon there, which basically is reinforcing the point that says consumers will insist that this type of acceptance technology be made available from the retailer. And they will make shopping decisions based on where they find the most pleasurable shopping experience. And I think these are two very powerful messages that as retailers and payments providers, we need to be very mindful of.
So I'm Nigel. I'm the General Manager of AIB Merchant Services, and we're here today at the AIB MS Future of Payments.
Why did you feel it important to hold this event today?
We really wanted to reach out to our customers and try and give them a little bit of clarity around how we see the future of payments developing in an environment where we weren't trying to sell them something. It was really just an information sharing exercise from our perspective.
We heard the speakers discuss mobile payments. Is this an area AIB MS are involved in?
Yeah, it's very much the future, the way we see the cards acceptance being progressed and developed and evolving. So we see an awful lot of activity now around contactless payments at point of sale, and we see mobile payments as the next natural evolution for that, so people wanting to transact off their smartphone.
Fraud is always a concern for both merchants and consumers. Do you think this influences the payment methods chosen by consumers, or why cash is still king?
Yeah, I think it's probably a very fair comment. I think people want to be able to transact securely, but I think there's also a huge desire to transact online, and people like the freedom and flexibility and ease of using an e-commerce environment. And what mobile is all about is trying to bring that secure payment into a physical card-present type environment.
So how does PCI impact mobile payments?
So PCI, or payment card industry, it's all about data security, and data security is key no matter how you're accepting the transactions, whether they're from mobile or whether from a card present space. It's really important that merchants understand how they're storing that data and they keep it as secure as possible, whether it's mobile or whether it's card present.